Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in on August 8th, 2022. My name is Brad LaPlante, and I am here, as always joining us, Griff Sutton. Welcome to Take This. How are you?
Good, Brad. I'm good, man. Episode 54.
This is
Kind of
episode
crazy.
54. Is it
That
54 or 55?
should be 54, I believe.
I don't know.
Yeah, either way.
Either way,
Number.
yeah.
We'll check it
We
in
have
post.
we have made
Kind of
it.
crazy that Brad. This is now like our. I know 52 wasn't the actual 1 year anniversary because we were doing like 2 episodes a week at times last year, and then we've also taken like some weeks off throughout the summer just because summer is a very quiet time for sports. Like we're not going to break down baseball every week just because we're not a exclusive baseball podcast, and if you want like baseball nerd stuff, you're not going to come to our kind of podcast for that. But I know that we've gotten to the year point because it was around this time last year we did a very similar episode to this one where we kind of broke down the college season, and that's what we're doing today. We're breaking down the NCAA season. Next week will probably be our fantasy football episode. Maybe it'll either be that or the NFL season preview, and we'll flip flop those two. It will be one or the other. But this is a very exciting time of the year when anticipation is at its highest because football is so close to being back. Hard Knocks, it's Monday when we're recording this, but Hard Knocks premieres tomorrow. Lions, Dan Campbell. I've already seen some clips. I'm ready to run through a wall watching them. But no, very exciting stuff, and I'm looking forward to breaking down the college football season this year, especially because I am a floating MSU-ish fan now. So, gonna be really
Welcome,
interesting.
Griff. Welcome in.
Yes. So, Brad, how do you want to start this off? Obviously, Coach's poll was released today. First look at what the top 25 is going to be.
Yeah,
I think
we can.
I like it for the most part, but
I think we can open with the. I think we can open with the coaches poll. Griff,
Okay.
do you have any first impressions? First impressions of the coaches poll.
I like it. I think it's relatively fair. I think the biggest question mark for me is Clemson at 4. I do think Clemson's going to bounce back this year. I don't think there's any question about that. But 4 feels a little high. But the rest of the list feels pretty good. I like Notre Dame at 5 because they're the guy who's filling in for Brian Kelly, whose name I forget. I think is a very good coach, and I actually think Notre Dame will not skip a beat, and if anything, might be better than they were. Michigan at 6. I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the preseason. You have a returning QB in McNamara. The biggest question marks for them is they have a whole new set of coaches now because they pissed off all their coordinators, and the defense is going to look much different because Ojabo's not there, Hutchinson's not there, Daxton Hill's not there. You've lost a lot of pieces on that defense. Sorry, I'm looking at my dog in the background, who's just destroying all of the Squishmallows on my wife's little futon behind me.
Perfect. Hey, we love it.
This is incredible to watch. Anyway, but yeah, really nothing crazy out here other than the fact that Texas, ranked at 18, got a first place vote. And whoever placed that vote should lose their voting privileges.
Yeah. So I am not stoked on. I'm not stoked on Texas receiving a first place vote. I don't think that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I think in addition, I really love the list at the top. Okay, like it makes total sense, and obviously,
Yeah, I think the top 10. I don't think I change anything in that top 10. because I kind of get Clemson. I like.
Right.
There's no way they're as bad as last year.
Right. Well,
Are they the
I mean,
fourth best
their
team?
down year
Maybe.
was only like what, three losses?
Yeah, it
You know,
wasn't
like
like
that's it.
awful. It was just awful for what we
It
thought.
was also bad at the beginning. I feel like that has kind of a lot to do with why people think that it's like so bad, or whatever.
The the, the other
Well,
thing
and
is
I
Texas A&M at 7. I think
yeah
is because how good of a recruiting class they had. Does that make
I
sense?
mean that's
Because
fair.
they went hard on the NIL, and I
Yeah.
feel like that is sort of a response to it. I don't know if they're the 7th best team in the country yet, but I also understand why they're ranked that high.
Yeah, I think the real honest to God, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Okay, like I think 14 is about good for Michigan State, but do you know who I don't understand? NC State. What is that? That's 13. What are you doing there?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. They had a good year last year. I forget who their quarterback is. But I
Well,
don't
that's the thing.
fully
I could not name a
understand
single
that.
person on the roster. I don't know a single person on the roster. I mean, then again, I don't know anybody on Oregon's roster either.
Devin Leary, yeah, that's right. He's pretty good, but
But like,
yeah,
what
it's
am I missing something about NC State? Something going on there that I'm not aware of?
like I said, they had a good year last year. I'm pretty sure they finished the year ranked. And honestly, everything outside the top 10 to me is kind of a wash.
Yeah, I mean
Like
that's true.
20 is the same as 12 to me, which I know that sounds really dumb. But like
Well, and even like Pitt
it
seems
could
a little
you
high.
could swap yeah. But like I think like I said, the list I think is pretty good. Cincinnati is ranked at 22. Like they made the CFP last year, or yeah, they were
Well,
in
right,
the college
and
football play.
so like I don't understand how you can put Clemson at 4 if you're going to put Cincinnati all the way down at 22. By that same token,
Yeah,
like if you're
Cincinnati
gonna
should probably at least break the top 20.
well,
Like
or even
that's
top
pretty rough.
15 at least, like because I
Yeah.
mean they made the college football playoff. Like Michigan also made the college football playoff and laid an egg. Like they are number 6, you know. So, I don't know. Like, I was just actually on a podcast this morning and I was talking about how, like, is when Michigan State, I made this analogy, when Michigan State uh, went to the college football playoff in 2015, what is the difference between them, like, laying laying an egg to Alabama and Michigan laying an egg to Georgia? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Cincinnati losing to Alabama. Like, what's the difference? Like, there's, at the end of the day, the same result happened. We got to the same place, you know? So, like, I just don't see what the disrespect with Cincinnati is, because does it really matter if, we send the best teams? I mean, I was arguing for their placement in the CFP in 2020. Was it 2020 or 2021? It couldn't have been 2021 because that was last season. It might have been 2021 though, because I was like, what's the big deal? Like
Yeah.
Cincinnati had, like, they'd played Notre Dame, they'd played these Indiana, all these teams or whatever, and at the end of the day, like, sure, you send out a team, and can they beat Alabama? You got to go through Alabama. If a team has not played Alabama, then I don't know, they maybe deserves a chance of some sort. But I don't know, they're just really low to me, and like, for all the disrespect Cincinnati gets, I think this is probably the worst. But it's just a coaches poll, obviously. AP polls out what, August 25th or something like that, 15th.
Yeah, and obviously we won't get the CFP poll until later in the season.
I'm surprised
but these
Texas
are normally
is as
pretty
high as
good
18.
number. Yeah, like I think like it's like my breakdown of the conferences is the SEC will be kind of interesting. It's
Okay.
going to be Bama and Georgia, but I do think it's interesting to like who finishes 3 through 5 because like LSU trying to be back on the come up. Florida has been trying to like get back to that point. There's a lot of A lot of interesting things uh, with the SEC, but it's going to be the top heavy. It's going to be Georgia, Bama. We all know it, and that's fine. It's a good matchup. It's the best two teams in the conference. Big 12, obviously Texas and Oklahoma are still there. Oklahoma's going to be really interesting, Brad. Wouldn't you agree? They lose Lincoln Riley. They lose their what's his name? Cameron something. The 5-star commit. He ended up
I mean, they
following
lost.
Riley to
Yeah, they
USC.
lost a good chunk of the momentum.
And yet they're still ranked 9th.
And they're ranked number 9. Yeah. Maybe that's
I can't
the
tell
thing
if
that nobody's
that's because
talking
the
about.
The Big 12's kind of a weak division. Weak conference, I should say.
I mean, to me, it seems
Oklahoma,
like if you're winning the Big 12 at this point, like does the Big 12 have the right to call themselves a Power 5? I mean, they do, but they don't. You know what I mean?
Do.
Once Oklahoma and Texas leaves, what's
Texas
left?
and Oklahoma, because Texas and Oklahoma, at the very least, are big name, big brands, right? Like
and
Michigan,
they're competent
right?
universities, right? Exactly. And they're not. And I mean, I mean, even the lowest, like Kansas, can beat the best, group of 5 teams.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's going to be Oklahoma and Texas probably, but like there's still some
is Texas
good
back,
like
Griff? Is Texas really back?
We're back, and they've been. That's going to be remain one of the funniest. That will forever remain one of the funniest moments in college football history, because he said that and they only got worse ever since then. They've never bounced back.
And it's rough.
But yeah, like you got teams like Oklahoma, Okie State, Texas Tech, Baylor. Like Baylor was in the Big 12 game, and it was Baylor and Okie State, and it was a fun game. Like those are teams that are like, and on the AP coaches poll, they're 10 and 11. So like the Big 12 has like competent schools. It's just nothing. There's no scary school. Big 10 has Ohio State, and last year you could technically put Michigan in there. They made the CFP. Like I would argue, Michigan wins the Big 12 every year.
Like, absolutely. Hell, you throw Michigan in the Big 12 and they destroy it.
Yeah, and Michigan State would probably
would be a dominant team in the Big 12.
And they'd compete. They'd be pretty fucking close. Like, so that's like, I view the power level of it. Like, yeah, it's great. Okie State, you made the Big 12 championship, but like, what does that really mean? So the Big 12, I really want to see how, with all this realignment going on, how that's going to play out. And then the same thing kind of goes for the Pac-12. Obviously, SEC and UCLA are leaving, and SEC is the big, interesting point, because you have Lincoln Riley. He got a bunch of people in the transfer portal to come from Oklahoma. He should be somewhat successful immediately. The Pac-12 has some interesting schools. Oregon is a pretty good school. They're ranked 12 on this list. And like Utah, I think like they're ranked 8. Like Utah is probably going to be the toughest school, maybe the best school in the Pac-12, unless USC really just like turns it on and they come out swinging. But the Pac-12 plays tough. Like Arizona State has given MSU fits for years. You know what I mean? Like there's some like scrappy schools in here that, I do think it's Utah's conference to lose, with Oregon and USC being like the next tier below. But I'm going to be very curious to see how this one plays out, because it's hard to say, especially with USC and UCLA. They're going to be leaving to go to the Big 10. How this conference plays out, and what this conference is going to look like in 2 years, because right now the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are on the outside looking in terms of the conference power structure. Yeah. It is SEC, a pretty sizable gap, Big 10, probably, I don't know. I put the ACC third, but that's only because of Clemson. I would say the Pac-12 has a more quality teams throughout. They just don't really have a star. But they could. Again, USC could become that. Lincoln Riley can recruit very well. It's just going to depend. He's got to be there a couple years. He's got to get a recruiting, his recruits in. You can't say with him yet. We're not going to know really until he joins the Big Ten, and then again, the Big Ten just stays at second place in that power structure. So, yeah, the Pac-12 is going to be an interesting conference for sure. I'm actually going to stay up and watch some games because I'm going to want to watch Utah. I'm going to want to watch USC Utah. I'm going to want to watch Oregon USC. Like, those are going to be good games this year, which is cool because I don't think that the Pac-12 has had that in a while.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about realignment, and I wanted to share this article with you, Griff, real quick, okay? So, we've talked about college football expansion, right? We've talked about the best way to expand college football without making everything suck, right? We've also talked about conference realignment.
Yeah, like
ways
very worried about USC, a West Coast team, being in the Big Ten.
Well, and that's fair. And I'm also here, but here's the thing, okay? I don't think that we've maybe, and there's this article I'm reading, okay, that is granted, it's by ESPN, but it kind of has me like, maybe we're thinking about this the wrong way. Okay. Now, I think I've discussed this with you before. Okay. But it is an incredible idea. First off, it's an incredible idea. And I think that it would be really awesome. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to look at are bowl games. Okay. Like what are the hardest things to change about college football, right, is like the most lull period is always the bowls, right? You're always like too many games or not too many, nobody wants all these games. Obviously they're for TV revenue, right? What would you say if I told you there was a way to get every team in a bowl? You'd think I'm crazy, okay? Well, I have a plan for you right here, okay? I'm going to sell you on this. Swear to God. Week 1 bowl games. I will die on this hill. Okay? Now let me explain before everything gets crazy or whatever. Week 1 bowl games would be incredible. Okay? And I'm sure that, getting 130 some odd schools to sign up for bowls on week 1 would be incredible. So, first off, here's the first pro to week 1 bowl games. No more opt-outs. It's a brand new season. You got no reason to opt out. Okay? So you have very exciting matchups. You might see Michigan and USC week 1, Michigan and Texas week 1, Michigan State playing Jesus Christ, I don't know, Florida week 1. Like, I don't know, just for the shit of it, No, like, I don't know. You can keep, if you want, you can keep the conference loyalty or whatever to how like the Big Ten team and the Pac-12 team always go to play, in the Rose Bowl or whatever. Like, you can keep that. I don't give a shit. But like, that would be cool. Okay. And, in doing this, you know what you would get rid of?
What's that?
Games against FCS opponents. Okay, but here's what you do. You move them. You move those games against FCS opponents. You move them to the spring, and that's your spring practice. Okay, but and I want to go back. I want to circle back to the week 1 bowl game idea because there's one last point. So you're gonna have a 5 to 7 day window of basically zero competition with the NFL.
Okay.
and you're not gonna have. You're gonna be the only football on. Who would say no to that? Imagine like week one. Imagine if we in 3 weeks, if we are expecting to see Hawaii playing I don't know, Central Michigan, or well, I guess that's not really an exciting matchup, is it?
No, that would be cool. I think okay, I like this idea because you make a good point. It makes the bowl games matter.
Right.
You're right. You wouldn't deal with
You wouldn't deal with
opt-outs.
opt-outs.
There's one. I see one big downside, and this isn't like the biggest deal because at the end of the day, you gotta do what's best. The team. So this is like purely a sentimental thing. College football's a business, so like take this with a grain of salt. Teams who have seniors who've earned a good record to go, let's say, play a New Year's Six bowl would not be able to do that, right? Because they're seniors, they would not get the chance. Although I guess they're not happening on New Year's Six, so it doesn't really matter anymore. So yeah, I guess you're right, but it would it still be neutral site? Like,
so
would they still be true?
These games would all be.
So like the Rose Bowl
games.
is still out west.
Okay. Out west, yeah. They would all be neutral site.
Well, and I like before the USC news, I wouldn't worry about this as much. But like, if you're, let's say, Ohio State, they went to the Rose Bowl this year, right? Let's say,
I mean, yeah, you would have to.
They'd be going west. They would go West Coast, and it's not the biggest deal.
Yeah,
because it's only 1 week out of the year. I like the idea. Like I said, I think my only thing.
Well,
I think it's really just like, yeah, it kind of sucks if you're a senior that
Well, and
like let's say you start the year and you're in a less prestigious bowl, but like it can still be everything it was supposed to be. You still make it like kind of an experience, and like maybe you do something at the end of the year. Like, okay, your team made. Let's say you are Michigan State, right? You made was it the Cotton Bowl?
Peach Bowl.
Peach Bowl. I was like, I know it's cotton, peach, sugar. Like, I always forget which one's which. Maybe you still do something where you do send the team down, let them have the experience in like December, and January. Let them,
Well,
but it's not a game. Make it like almost like a. Or like maybe make it like a Pro Bowl event. Anyway, this is like a very minor aside. I like the idea, Brad. I think the one thing you that won't do would be getting rid of the FCS games. And a big reason why is those FCS schools would hate it, I think.
I'm aware. I know they would hate it.
Make a lot of money by getting beat up on by these good schools.
I think
but I also understand why you want to get rid of it. It definitely makes sense. I just think practically it won't happen, but I do think the bowl game as the first game of the year is practical. And you know what it helps with? It's the thing everyone bitches about with college football is non-conference schedule being easy. This gets rid of that. At least
this gets rid of like a game.
I mean, and it's not even guaranteed to be hard. Like if you have Michigan versus Utah, that would be a good matchup. Michigan should still probably win that matchup, but at least it's better than Michigan versus Hawaii or Michigan versus UW. You know what I mean? I do think that would help make the non-conference schedule of these teams a little more competitive and a little more interesting, and it takes like, because right now like Michigan is going up against what, like Hawaii and two other nobodies this year.
You could also probably use some sort of metrics to like measure who plays who, right? Like because
some
there are predictive something. There are like analytics you can look at that are pretty accurate. Like even our like very flawed polls are only off by about 20 on average, only off by about 20 rankings or less on average. You know what I mean? So if you placed two teams together that were in 10 rankings of each other, I think that would be completely even and completely fair.
Yeah,
You
no,
know what
I
I'm
think
saying? Like, I don't think that the strength of
yeah.
schedule would come up as like being an issue.
It wouldn't, and that's the thing, because like Michigan, like right now, Michigan has, and Alabama really, like none of them have any like. There's no incentive for them to go and make and schedule harder non-conferences, because why would they? Why risk putting a loss on your schedule when you
Exactly.
know, as long as you beat your conference opponents, you're going to the title game?
Right.
Because
Whereas,
and
and I think that
so
this would, and correct me if I'm wrong, would the like it would expanding the playoff not be the same thing to incentivize teams to even schedule harder games? And I'm not saying this to be like, I'm not trying to persuade you, but I kind of am, right? So think about this, okay? I'm going to bring up an example. And so obviously in college basketball, you have 64 teams that are making the March Madness tournament, okay?
right,
Tom Izzo for Michigan State will go out and schedule. He's got on the calendar this year. He's got Gonzaga. He's got, I think, like Kansas or Kentucky or something. He's got like all these hard teams that he is going out and scheduling because he knows for certain that he will likely make that tournament by March, right? And he can afford those losses even if he loses, but he knows where his team stands against that tougher competition and how far they have to go. You take a lower end team. I'm not talking about Alabama, obviously. They expect to be in the championship. Every champion so far for the CFP has had to beat Alabama, or it's been Alabama. And so, like, if you were to expand the playoff, I would almost think that it would incentivize a lower tier team like, say, Oregon to schedule a team like Alabama or an SEC school, maybe Georgia or Jesus, I don't know, Florida. Is Florida good still? I don't know, but this would
no.
incentivize
Middle
scheduling harder opponents and getting better games because you want to know where your team stacks up at the end of the season if you know you're going to make it in. Because at this point, if like there's nobody scheduling hard games because they know if they can beat their conference, they can get in.
I would argue it makes it even more futile potentially because, like, if you're if Michigan realizes if there's like let's say an 18 playoff, right? Hell, they're gonna realize, so we could get in even with like let's say they beat Michigan State for once, and they lose to Ohio State, but it's not like a blowout. They lose by one score, lose in overtime, but they had a cupcake schedule to start. Michigan's getting in one of those spots. With one loss to OSU, they get in one of those slots.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
I feel like for teams,
but don't
like
you want to win it?
Doesn't.
Don't you want to know if you can beat this team?
Yes, but Michigan doesn't care. They want, because you know what happens?
I mean, no, Michigan doesn't care. I was actually just thinking about this earlier. Michigan, I don't even know if Michigan cares because Jim Harbaugh is still on the staff. I think if Michigan cared about winning, Jim Harbaugh would be fired.
A very Michigan like MSU has all of the reason to schedule harder games because they are viewed as less. They're viewed as the underdog. They are little brother, and that's not quite literally, but they are viewed as the lesser school in the state. Right or wrong, it's wrong. They should.
I mean, if you want me to put this in a Michigan State perspective, I think that if Michigan State wants to actually win a title,
like imagine
if they bring Ohio State first. I think it's Ohio State, then it's Alabama.
Oh, 100%. But I'm saying, like, you want to help Michigan State be a little more established. I say put Oregon on your schedule, beat them at home, and boom. Like that is a credibility win. And I do think for schools that seem like Michigan State shouldn't lack credibility, but I'm saying like the objective truth is they aren't viewed with that kind of credibility.
Well, yeah, right? Because they've only had one good season in the last 6 years.
Yeah, they've had like obviously this last season was very good for them. 11-2
But
is great.
I'd argue
Obviously,
it's a miracle. I think that I think that the Michigan State team.
I think they're due for a regression.
And well, Michigan
that
State's
kind of
team
leads
was worse last year than their record indicated.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that because, so like, yeah, to bring it back around, I do think to finish the point on this, I think having the bowl games would be great because it's one less non-conference game that is it's out of the school's hands. It's determined in that way, and I think it's a great way to do it because you earn who you face, and it's a great way
plus
to keep
the amount of football that we would see is incredible.
And you know what? People are gonna I think for the investors, think of if you are the Chick-fil-A Bowl or whatever it is. People are in December aren't gonna want to watch Hawaii in a bowl game. But right now, people are so excited for football.
Right.
They would 100%.
Dude, people are out here going to NFL practices. Are you kidding me? They want football.
Yeah. So it's even better. The brands would love it. I think if you're sponsoring a bowl, more people are going to watch your bowl game because people are so people watch the Hall of Fame game every year at the NFL preseason, and it gets good numbers. Not anything crazy, but it gets pretty good numbers because people are just, even though it's a preseason game, people are just so hungry for football that they're like, yes, 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 yes. They will watch preseason football as if it was a real game. So imagine giving them real college football games with real stakes. And again, advertisers are going to love it. More eyes seeing your name on your sponsored bowl game. You can run more ads. You're going to make more money on the bowls. It's a good idea. And I do think it would be a good thing.
And going back to this, ESPN did have a few other things in this article, from putting the FCS opponents to the spring and doing spring practice against them. I mean, you would still get sort of that FCS experience, but you would get it against lower whatever.
Yeah,
opponents.
and you can Eastern's is an FBS school, but they're basically if you're Michigan State, you're not losing to Eastern.
You know what? You know what else? I'd really
and I love Eastern. That's no hate against Eastern. Gotta love them to death.
You know what? You know what else I need, and this needs to be, I think, is priority number one. Championship weekend, everyone should play. That's when the Big Ten did that during the COVID year, and it was great, right?
Oh,
you got to see
the Big Ten title game.
Yeah, the Big Ten. So during championship weekend, I would like to see the first place East versus first place West, right? That's the championship. Big Ten, second place East, second place West. The third place East, third place West. And I know the Big Ten is a very bad example because the Big Ten East is much better than the Big Ten West. But
here's what I would tell you:
more football.
Here's why I don't think it'll happen. I think the NCAA would say no to this.
Injury?
Opt out. Players will opt out if they want to opt out because that's no longer regular season anymore. That is essentially a glorified bowl game, right?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
It's a scrimmage, right? It's not. I guess you can put it on the record, but it doesn't count for anything. I do think, though, the real reason why that wouldn't work is more so because that Saturday they play. It's they do the Big 12. I think this last year it was Big 12, SEC. It was Big 12 was at noon, SEC was at 3, Big 10 championship was at night. And they're not going to want other programming on to cut into that. And they're also not going to want fans, let's say you're Ohio State. You'll probably hate watching the Big 10 title game. So Michigan State loses, right?
Put it on Friday. Put the game on Friday.
Oh, okay. So you're saying
so move it.
Yeah.
You could even move you can't move the games to Sunday because you can't compete with the NFL.
The NFL is still there, and The NCAA and the NFL are just kind of like, okay, we won't fuck with each other because we're good
Well,
for
I'm
each
pretty
other.
sure that like if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if they have contracts too. To prevent them from competing with each other like directly. But yeah, I mean, if you put it on Friday, those games would be pretty, awesome to watch, right?
Yeah. Yep. No, I think that's an interesting idea. I think that one you're gonna have a harder time getting people on board with, just because it's gonna be difficult to schedule.
I think
but I'm not
the
against
only,
it.
I guess
I'm not
the
against
the only way it works, I think, is if you do move the bowl games to beginning.
100%. That is the
know.
only way it would work. And you almost have to do that like the weekend after, I think, the championship games, because it would be too much to fit in on the weekend. Unless you started doing them on like Thursday night and you did it like Thursday night football, so you can't do that. Yeah, that's
You could
tough.
try Wednesday.
I think it depends. You would have to. If
you could try some Tuesday night. I mean, you could try Tuesdays and do like Maction does. Just a Tuesday night football game.
There's people a lot smarter than us that could figure out a good way to schedule that, but I don't hate the idea on principle. I think the execution would be hard to do. But
yeah, I mean that's true. That's true. That is true. Griff, so what do you want to go into next?
Let's talk. Let's just talk Big Ten projections, because that's, I think, where we'll finish up today.
Perfect. Because I have
let's
COVID
be honest,
and
Brad,
I need to. My voice is wearing thin.
Yeah, let's. We'll be quick, because I think this is a 3 to 4 school conference at this point.
Right.
It's going to be Ohio State, probably Michigan, and then Penn State, then Michigan State. Which is funny because Penn State is actually, are they even ranked?
No, they are ranked so they would be 27th. Iowa had more votes than them.
Yeah. So, yeah, Michigan State should be above them, but I think you and I are both kind of bracing for impact, because I think we're both expecting a regression for Michigan State in terms of record.
Yeah,
because I think here's what happened last year. I think you're right. They outperformed their record. They got away with some wins.
I mean, yeah,
Let's
Nebraska
be honest.
was
The Michigan
an absolute
game,
steal.
The Michigan game, kind of a steal, right? Like Michigan had a bit of a collapse, and you had Kenneth Walker.
Right.
Like, if they didn't have Kenneth Walker, they are a 500 football team.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, and
you don't have him this year. Now, granted, your pass defense should be better because, as Mel Tucker said, can't be much worse.
No, it was dead ass last. It was so bad.
It was the worst in college football. It can't be worse than that, but it's not going to be great either. I do think Peyton Thorne is going to be very good. I would argue he will be a better quarterback than whoever Michigan trots out. I think he'll definitely be better than Cade. JJ. Yeah, thanks. Hot take alert. No, but like JJ, it's up in the air, right? We don't know about JJ. We've seen Peyton play. We've seen JJ play.
Who do you think wins that QB battle?
Cade.
You really think
Probably. So? But I think they're gonna do this flippy floppy shit again to keep JJ happy. But he's gonna be a junior. God. It's gonna be a mess, and that's you just needed to pick one and stick to it. And just it's that simple, but they don't want to lose him. They don't want him to transfer. So, and you know what? It's kind of weird that he hasn't. I'll be honest.
If you're a good program, wouldn't you think that you would be able to get another quarterback?
you would think that, but look at this last recruiting year and who they tried to recruit.
So yeah,
couldn't get Lloyd Carr's son.
That sucks. That's pretty tough. Yikes.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think like Penn State, I think, is the bottom, but I do think they could have a better record than Michigan State, because Michigan State does have a lot of question marks for me in the air right now. It's going to really depend on how does that defense look and how does that offense do without the tank known as Kenneth Walker. And And then Penn State, they're kind of the same team this year, in terms of like they have a lot of returning starters, but James Franklin is still their head coach. So that's why I think Michigan State could still be better than them, because James Franklin sucks, and I will die on that hill. And I'm so glad
I think everyone
they
I
gave
think a
him
lot
an
of people,
extension, because him getting an extension, it's good for Michigan State and it's good for Michigan, right? Regardless of whatever, like there's a better chance of you beating Penn State because James Franklin is there. So then we look at Michigan, kind of talked about them. Obviously the QB, there's a QB battle, controversy, whatever you want to call it. You do have Blake Corum, who is a very good replacement for oh my god, what am I forgetting? Hassan Haskins. Corum has the speed. You also have what's his name? Who's the other? He's the receiving back. He was a freshman last year. Edwards was his last name.
Braylon Edwards.
Is it Braylon Edwards? Yeah, it is Braylon Edwards.
I don't know.
He's a very good pass catching back, and so you have a good duo tandem running back again. That's good. Your receiving core is going to be better this year, purely because you have Ronnie Bell. You have Anthony Anthony,
Right.
the Lansing native, who was severely underutilized last year. So the offense has the ability to be better than last year, because I think their receiving threats are even better. I think their offensive line and their running backs can repeat the production they had. The real big question mark is the OC. They lost their OC because they pissed him off somehow. Josh Gaddis. But I think the offense will be okay. I think when you have weapons that good, and when you can run the ball the way with authority, it doesn't take a complete rocket scientist. It's the defense I'm worried about. You don't have the same defensive coordinator. You lost two elite college edge rushers in Ojabo and Hutchinson. And because, like, regardless of how they do in the NFL, their college careers were fantastic, especially their respective last years, both great years. And Daxton Hill was a pretty good safety. I mean, he was he was either late first or early second rounder in the NFL. So, like, he's going to be a starter probably in the NFL. And he's going to be playing this year. So that defense has a lot of holes to fill. I don't know if the secondary can do as well, and I definitely think the defensive line takes a step back. I think Michigan is going to struggle to do what they did last year. And then you have Ohio State, which is going to be interesting. They have a great quarterback. Yeah, he's only going to be better. He was a freshman last year. He's only going to be better this year. And even though he lost Chris Olave, he lost what? 2 or 3 receivers? How many receivers did they lose last year? And they lost Olave. They lost I thought they had, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he is still on the roster. I believe anyway.
Yeah, I think he is, because I know his brother plays for the Pirates, and I was looking them up.
He was the only one of the trio of their really good receivers that is still on the team. And then you got like Marvin Harrison Jr., son of Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison from the Indianapolis Colts. And he balled out in the Rose Bowl. So, like, Ohio State's offense is going to be great. Their defense, I think, I trust Ryan Day. I think the biggest thing with Ryan Day, and you pointed this out, Brad, I don't think he's unbeatable. I think he is mortal. And we saw that last year, but, and I'm not making excuses, right? You play the team in front of you. Michigan curb stomped Ohio State last year.
I think that Ohio State absolutely just destroys Michigan this year. That is my prediction.
This year, yes. I agree with you, because I do think C.J. Stroud, with another year of experience under his belt.
Oh, absolutely. Just fucking mortified.
And they're going to,
I would
they're
be
gonna
terrified if I was the
lots of-
University of Michigan.
Yeah, and they got to go to
I
Columbus.
want to see Ohio State do to Michigan what Ohio State did to Michigan State last year. Game over by halftime.
See, I don't. And it's not because I care about Michigan. I just, I still hate Ohio State more than anything. I'm still at the point.
Oh,
where,
I'm not. I
because
mean, I
was a
don't hate
Michigan-
Ohio State. I respect them, I think, is what it is more so what it is.
I can respect Ohio State. I hate their fans. I think Ohio State and Michigan have the two of the worst fan bases in college sports, in all of sports. Let's be real. Because Ohio State, yes, they've earned the ability to talk the shit because they've done stuff,
Right.
but they're still annoying as shit and they're gross. And that's the thing, like, I'm still coming off being a Michigan fan, so it's like I don't really care if Michigan loses. I'd probably be happy, honestly. I just don't want to see them get curb stomped because I don't want Ohio State to have that much joy. But man,
What
I'd love
if
them to
Ohio
just
State
beat
curb
both of
stomps
them.
Michigan but loses the Big Ten?
They lose to like Wisconsin. Imagine it's like Purdue.
I would pay to see
'Cause, like,
that.
Purdue is Ohio State's kryptonite. Could you imagine Purdue comes out and wins the Big Ten?
I mean,
title
that's
game
how
and
it
goes,
was in 2015,
playoff?
right? Wasn't it? Michigan State went into Ohio State with like their third string quarterback, beat Ohio State,
Yeah.
and Ohio State had one of the best teams that I've ever seen.
Yep. It's pretty
And
incredible,
Michigan
but-
State,
No,
Michigan
it's-
State
this
was
is-
like that Purdue team. I mean, granted, they ended up going to the CFP, but like Michigan State came in there with a third string quarterback.
Yeah. No, this conference is Ohio State's to lose. Michigan has to go to Columbus this year, so that's like huge difference. I think their hardest game is still probably Michigan. Maybe no, probably not Penn State, and probably not Michigan State. I do think Michigan is still the second best team in this conference until otherwise, right? Like that's just the preseason, but like Michigan could lay an egg in like an early. They could lose to MSU this year. Like
Michigan could. Oh, absolutely, they could.
MSU
they're losing
always
the series
gets
since 20.
Now the one reason I do think, and it's kind of sucks because I'm not going to be rooting for Michigan this year, but I do think Michigan will at least beat MSU this year,
You think so?
and I think that it's what Jim Harbaugh said at Big Ten Media Day in Indianapolis.
You think
He
so?
said, our goals this year: beat Michigan State, beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten, go to the CFP.
Okay, Griff. Do
And
you
he
think
put-
he's gonna win the
he put-
CFP?
Oh no! But here's
Do you
my
think
point.
he's gonna win the Big
He
Ten?
No,
Do you think he's going to beat Ohio State?
no,
What makes you think he's gonna do number 4?
because he put it in the list with those other ones. He put because it's always been for the longest time Michigan and Michigan fans have viewed you guys aren't a real rival for us. You know, we don't take you that seriously.
Here's what I
And
think
for him-
personally.
And for him,
here's
for him to wait, for him to come out and say beating Michigan State is just as important as beating Ohio State. And so that tells me they are going to start. You know how Ohio State and Michigan at the end of every practice do a drill to prepare for the game, the Michigan-Ohio State game. And I
Sure.
think Michigan is going to start doing the same thing for Michigan State. They're going to start the bulletin board material for the Michigan State game. I think they're going to prepare better for that game. They're going to take it more seriously because I think they haven't. And I think Harbaugh knows he has to. And so I will give him some credit there. He's paying attention and saying we need to be careful and take them seriously and treat them as big of a threat as Ohio State. Even if they're not on the same skill level, they're our rival. We need to treat them like they are the biggest enemy on the planet.
I mean, you should do that
Now,
with every
whether
team.
No, I get what you mean. You should prepare for every team, but you do not need to prepare for Rutgers like you need to prepare.
You think
for Ohio State.
Michigan State shouldn't have prepared for Purdue last year?
Well, okay. There's obviously lapses that can happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean,
but I'm saying, like, you still practice in the week and prepare for that opponent, but you keep those 2 games. You practice for those 2 games every week. You do something at the end of every practice to get ready for those 2 games, while also preparing for that week's game.
yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me,
Now, whether Michigan actually does or not is different. The game is in Ann Arbor this year. That
which
does
doesn't
give Michigan the
actually.
advantage.
So the interesting thing about that, though, the last, and I have to look at up the record. I can't remember off the top of my head, but for the longest time, like 2015 to 2020, a majority of the winners were they were the away team, right?
Oh,
So
yeah, they were.
That's like
They were,
it
you're
was
right.
like a very weird like streak of years. Let me look into it real quick. Yeah, so in 2014, the game was in East Lansing, Michigan State won. In 2015, the game was in Ann Arbor, Michigan State won. It starts in 2015. 2015, it was in Ann Arbor, Michigan State won. In the 2016 game was in East Lansing, Michigan won. And then the next game was in Ann Arbor, and Michigan State won. And then the next game was in East Lansing, and Michigan won. The next game was in Ann Arbor. Michigan actually won that one. But the next game was in Ann Arbor, and Michigan State won. Then the next game was in East Lansing, and Michigan State won. So if the trend holds positive,
I think
Michigan
the
State could win.
the trend has just been Michigan State wins more often than Michigan.
I mean, that's fair. That is fair. I don't know. I mean, the interesting thing, I am upset, and I think it has to do with like TV deals or something like that. But I'm more upset that like the game is not in East Lansing this year, because if Michigan gets 2 straight games in Ann Arbor, why doesn't I guess that's not always been the case, like the fact that it alternates, because
Yeah.
the last time that it didn't alternate was in 2013 to 2014. They had 2 straight games in East Lansing where Michigan State won. And then before that, they had 4 straight games in Ann Arbor from 1954 to 57, but who really counts that, you know? So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, sure, it's an advantage for Michigan that it's in Ann Arbor, but like at the same time, like it's in Michigan. You know what I mean? Like it's still in the state, you know. I don't know. I don't think that it's too big of a deal. But
Yeah, but no, at the end of the day, this is 110% Ohio State's conference to lose. It is theirs. Michigan and Michigan State probably are both going to regress, and Ohio State should only progress because their offense should be better. They didn't lose a lot. They lost two great receivers, probably 2 of the best in all of college football, but they still have Jackson Smith and Jigba. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. They have guys that are ready to step up and ball out. So it's going to be an interesting year, especially from my perspective, because it is going to be kind of emotionless. Like, I'm going to be rooting for MSU, but like,
you're
not
a floating
like
fan.
a hardcore fan, because I'm still a floating fan. Like, I have a lean, but I don't have a full. I don't have like a full blown like fandom this year. So it's going to be interesting watching this. I'm really going to have a lot of energy in Lions football on Sundays. So it's going to be interesting. So, Brad, do you want to try signing us off again?
Oh my God damn it! Yeah, I would love.
No, I can do it.
No.
You did well last spring.
I would.
You
love
did great.
To. Okay, here we go.
I'll just say this: we're talking about either NFL season preview.
We are.
Maybe do some. Oh, Brad, wait! Before we finish this, I realized who is your predicted college football playoff? I'll do mine. You think about it.
Oklahoma.
Bama.
Hold on. I got mine. Oklahoma.
Go
Alabama.
Ahead. What? Okay.
Well, it's not. I'm not doing like them backwards. Like these are in no order. Zero.
I know,
order.
but Oklahoma being there at all is shocking to me. Okay,
so
all right, go ahead.
Oklahoma, Alabama,
Oklahoma,
Texas. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna put Texas there. Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson.
Georgia.
And I am taking a step back on Georgia. I would say Ohio
OSU.
State. So
Yeah. Okay. I will say definitely Bama, definitely
Yeah.
OSU. Those are like the locks, probably the 1 and 2 seed. I'll say I'm going to say Georgia, and then I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball here.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Notre Dame.
You're gonna say Notre Dame. You know who I'm gonna say actually? I'm gonna put instead of Oklahoma, I am going to put in Texas A&M.
Oh, bold. But I don't hate it.
That is bold.
I don't hate it.
I think of the teams that have not made the college football playoff yet, I think that Texas A&M has the most likely chance. You said Notre Dame.
Team, isn't there? There's always like one team that makes it that hasn't been before.
Right. So I think that's why when you were like Notre Dame, I'm like, yeah. And I was thinking about putting A&M in there. So
yeah,
there you are.
No, that's a good list. All right, Brad, sign us off. NFL previews or fantasy next week, whichever one lines up better. I think I'm leaning.
And hopefully,
towards the
I don't have COVID-19 next week. So I'm really hoping. It's been a tough couple of days.
Yeah.
So, Griff, thank you so much for being with me on this podcast. It's been so enjoyable.
I hope you feel better, buddy.
Friends and fans, you can listen to us on Spotify. You can listen to us on Breaker. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and Amazon Podcasts.
Wherever you get
Radio
your
Public. Wherever you get your podcasts. We are not on Sirius XM, unfortunately. They denied our application. Just kidding. I didn't send one because who listens to XM? But anyway, so you can follow us on Twitter at TakeThisPod, on TikTok. We just went viral on TikTok. So find us there, and we will see you all in the next one.